U.S. soccer is about to change with the USL and their restructuring in 2028. They've just released their three naming for their three leagues: the USL Premier, USL Championship, USL League One. I'm a big fan of these league names. It might confuse some people at first, but again, it's very similar to the English style, and I know that they've made references, and a lot of journalists and publications and everything have made comparisons to what they're doing to the English leagues, and I think that is why they named it this, especially considering you're looking to capitalize on something like Welcome to Wrexham. You figure so many American fans are getting into soccer with documentaries like Welcome to Wrexham, the upcoming World Cup that might happen, hopefully it still does, as well as the 2028 Olympics that are going to be held in LA. So you've got a lot of soccer coming to the US. USL is looking to capitalize on that. It's a big, big chance. The last time the U.S. hosted a World Cup, 2 years later, the MLS played its first games, and the MLS has taken off as really the only real challenging league. Now, the MLS, from a marketability standpoint, commercial aspect right now, takes the cake over the USL. But the problem is, they kind of have a monopoly essentially. They're trying to, and it's just not okay. You look at your MLS games when they're on Apple TV right now, which okay, but they still have blackout restrictions for some of these teams. Sometimes they're so hard to find and watch. They're barely on national television here in the US, which is insane. I know we've got other sports going on, but there's no reason why the only games I can ever watch on national television is the semifinals and finals of the conferences. In my opinion, it's just a big mess. You got the playoffs and everything. In my opinion, USL is turning in the right direction with these promotion relegation systems and the structuring of these leagues. Their CEO, he part of this press conference this week when they've released all this stuff, said that USL Premier is going to be a defining piece of our long-term vision for the men's game here. And I really think that if this proceeds to have success, they've got women's leagues. It's just not as plentiful, not as many teams in it. I really do think that they would transition this eventually into the women's game as well, and look to have a strong hold over the, over soccer, the soccer leagues here in the U.S. I think this is just a great, great bit of capitalization, and really what true soccer fans want. You have the MLS fanboys that are constantly rooting for the MLS and MLS teams, and they wish death to the USL and stuff, and I think that's just insane, because at the end of the day, if the MLS is smart, they can also capitalize on this competition and elevate themselves and better themselves. If not, they're the death of themselves if they get this all wrong, this competition. And the same goes for the USL. If they get it all wrong, it's the end of it. MLS right now, you look at Inter Miami, they've got no US players. They're just going around all these rules. The MLS is caked in rules, and yet some of these teams can get around it. Some of these teams aren't allowed around it at all, and there's just no incentive. I grew up not too far from DC United, and they have sucked for years and years and years and years, and nothing's ever done about it. There's no punishment. Congratulations, you get the number one draft pick. Here's some random kid from college that most of them aren't ever going to play in anywhere else. I mean, Daryl Dike, who's at West Brom, unfortunately dealing with a lot of injuries. He came through the collegiate system. U.S. player Julian Gressel came through. Matt Turner came through U.S. soccer. Jack Harrison played U.S. soccer. Clint Dempsey. So a lot of guys have come through U.S. college soccer, but the whole drafting and everything, that whole process, in my opinion, is just a big old scam. I really think that at the end of the day, that's not going to be the correct pathway for youth players that much longer. With all this NIL money, it's essentially becoming a professional league. And same thing with college football and college basketball, but we're not here to talk about that. But either way, if you're looking at the USL, you look at their transfers and everything. I believe it was Eintracht Frankfurt just bought, I can't even remember his name, but from Orange County, defender, young 17, 18-year-old defender that was playing in the USL with Orange County. and now he's off to Europe. There's so many instances of this. You've got someone like Diego Luna was playing at Phoenix Rising, came through there, played there at 16, their senior team, and now he's made the jump to Real Salt Lake, and in my opinion, should be getting a move to Europe at any point. He's good enough, in my opinion, to get a test. I'm not saying a Man City or anything because he's not that good, but I think La Liga is a good step for someone like Diego Luna. But when it comes to the USL, one of the big issues recently has just been marketability and financing and behind the scenes stuff, especially with the financial aspect of things. They've got to deal with ESPN as well as CBS Sports to broadcast their games. That's definitely helped. Their ESPN deal is coming to an end, I believe, after this upcoming season. So that is a huge aspect, renegotiating a good TV deal with somebody that's accessible not just to local fans but to national fans and to the financial aspect of the clubs as well as the league itself. I think it's just a big part of it, and I think they just got to be really smart. Those issues with the player union and surrounding all of that towards the end of last season, if they can get that squared away, they still have a few years. This is coming in 2028, so there's still a lot of time to figure some of this stuff out. They haven't announced how the promotion and relegation is going to work yet. They did say in this release with the divisions how they're going to work. So you have your Premier Division, which is your top division. Think of it as your Premier League, your USL Premier League, essentially. It's just one big national table, 20 teams that they're planning on in 2028, and it's just a big table, 20 teams across the nation. That's your Premier. Now, if they want to do it like Premier League, that would mean 3 teams go down, 3 teams go up. So that would be into the championship. The championship's also going to be 20 teams, as well as launching in 2028 with as well another national table and working directly with the USL Premier. Now, USL League One's where it kind of starts to get a little interesting. Again, financing is a big part of this. If you think about how League One is in England, there's still so much money in it in League One and League Two. There's still a good bit of money in there. USL, they need to build up those kinds of funds. So USL League One, it's going to currently, at least when it launches, will be a regional format. So if you know the USL and how it works right now, there's a lot of regional-based divisions, especially you're further down. Your USL League Two, as it's currently called, their third division is you've got your regions. So you might have 5 or 6 teams in your region, and then you'll play some other teams from some other regions. Now, how's that going to work here? We don't exactly know yet. In my opinion, I kind of look at how some other regional leagues work in other countries. England, some of those further down divisions, they've got, maybe they have a north and a south, or maybe they have a northwest, a northeast, a southwest, southeast, and the Midlands or something. They've got, all kinds of different regions depending on how it goes. And maybe your first place team plays in a playoff, or, if you've got a north and a south, you've got the north and the south, the champions of both of those leagues get promoted. The bottom 2 from the championship drop down. And then maybe, some restructuring has to happen with the regions. I don't know. That's all stuff questions that are unanswered still at this point. But in my opinion, I think this is a huge chance for the USL to really launch themselves to a very good spot. I mean, they also announced that Tony Scholes, who is a current chief football officer of the English Premier League, will be joining as the USL Premier president when he is done, when his contract's done in the Premier League. So I think it's this summer. I believe it's this summer. And again, I'm getting this information directly from USL's website. So if some of this stuff changes, this is what's on USL's website at the moment. But yeah, I mean, they're genuinely trying to reshape American soccer, and I think this is such a good thing. Where I am right now, at least where there's been previously, some clubs have folded, that's a whole different thing. Some clubs have temporarily ceased operations to prepare for this restructuring, and one of them is close to me. So if I count them in it, I can drive 3 hours right now and get to 4, 5, 6 different USL teams and watch games. If I wanted to go watch an MLS game, I can drive 3 hours to go see Charlotte. That's one. I can drive 5 hours to go see DC United, or I can drive, I don't even know, 8, 9 hours, 10 hours to go see Atlanta or fly there. There's no real option. But yet, if I try and watch DC United, went back when they had their ESPN deal, I couldn't even watch DC United games because it was blacked out because I was considered in DC United region, and I can't watch Charlotte. It's a mess, and I think USL has to be careful with that and not do all these blackout games. It's killing American sports. It happens with MLB, NBA, NHL, and it's happening with the MLS. If they can get a good deal where that doesn't happen, I think they are in a really good spot, and I think they really need to start building on momentum, building up a fan base for this upcoming season. And I think they are. They're constantly pushing out information, and I think them sporadically pushing out information about this whole restructuring is such a smart move because it keeps popping up in people's feeds and in the news and everything. So it keeps people going. And right now, this is a key part because they're announcing this on I think this came out yesterday on the 27th or 26th or 27th. It came out this week. Yeah, 1:27 at 9 a.m. So it just came out this week, and then all of a sudden, the season starts in the beginning of March. So you've got about a month to a month and a half before your actual seasons start. So I would expect probably once we get closer as well to go ahead and be expecting some kind of additional release regarding something with the USL. They just announced some of the USL 2 regions for this upcoming season, and some of the other areas of the USL. I think this is a huge step forward. In my opinion, I'm a big fan, and really this summer, once things start to quiet down in my personal life and the USL starts picking up, I get some free weekends. I'm going to be driving to some of those games, and I'm going to be making videos, so make sure you guys are subscribed for that because I plan on making videos, trying to even get media credentials. I know some of the clubs, you can apply for media credentials. So I'm going to start trying to possibly get media credentials if possible. If not, just going, seeing what it's like, trying to, show what these USL clubs are about. It's a huge step forward. Again, I am going to be Team USL all day, every day until this thing hits the ground and collapses. Hopefully it doesn't, but I'm going to support the USL until they really screw up at this point. I am such an advocate for this. MLS has constantly shut it down because their billionaire owners have cried that they spent all this money getting into the MLS and they don't want into this and just want random clubs getting in, which I think is just a show of really American sports and just American, politics and finances and all. So I think USL coming in, bringing promotion relegation is such a cool aspect. I mean, there might be a club near you. Again, you've got clubs in Madison, Wisconsin, up in Maine, and Vegas and Oregon and Washington and Florida to Georgia to Tennessee, clubs all over Texas and Oklahoma, all over the country. There's clubs, and more are going to be showing themselves, whether they're already clubs now or they're going to work in their way through. And then you'll start seeing college kids working their way into the USL, or just kids coming up from these academies. Again, a lot of these USL teams have academies and have a plentiful youth academies. They do. I've done the research, and clubs like Loudoun, who are affiliated with DC United, they've got a huge academy. NCFC, a huge academy. Phoenix Rising has a massive academy, and youth program. Academies, youth programs, whatever you want to consider it. They're there. The youth players are there. The players are available in the U.S., but it's so hard to break into the MLS and to Division I college soccer, where your pathway forward, in my opinion, is going to start becoming playing in the USL. College soccer is definitely a great option, and there's a lot of, if you look at the USL, so many guys have played college soccer that are in USL. I know a bunch of guys that played in college, played Division I soccer, Division III soccer even, that are in USL and playing, throughout the league system. So I think it's a really cool opportunity, and there's a real fan culture and a real community aspect. A lot of these clubs will go out and do fundraising and community work and partnerships and everything, and I think that's just going to continue to rise. And in my opinion, this is just the best thing for U.S. soccer as a whole, and for communities that support soccer and everything. I really do think that once the USL gets going, by the time we hit 2030, that's 4 years away. We hit the 2030 season, the promotion relegation system will hopefully have been successful for a couple of seasons. We start seeing it a lot of times on national television throughout the week and mainstream media constantly, and it really starts to take a shift. And again, if this is successful, if they do things correctly, they have the finances in order, and they just don't do stupid stuff and don't get greedy and everything like that, they will take over the MLS and really push the MLS out and force their hand to either join and start below or whatever it is in maybe 10 years, 15 years from now. And that's just being conservative. In my opinion, I would love to see this take over the MLS in 5 years after the start of it. I would love to see it. I think with the MLS, with the World Cup, and with the Olympics, I think this is just a huge step forward. And you figure you got the Women's World Cup that's also going to be involved. And then if they throw this with the women as well, I think U.S. soccer, league system-wise, club football is going to blow up. And I think you'll really start to show a true example of what U.S. soccer can be and really take off. And I think that's where we'll start actually producing a lot better, more consistent European-type football players. I mean, there's so many guys that are available and there and playing that once the scouting gets up, the recognition gets up, the rep gets up, these guys start playing to get more players in there. In my opinion, I think it's just going to be such a good aspect for American soccer, youth players, national team, and the league system, and for supporters and community. But let me know what you guys think about the USL system. Are you guys excited for the new changes? I know I am. I know that this summer I'm going to find myself a team that I'm going to support. Maybe I start with just a couple, just be a neutral, learn about some clubs, figure out who really I want to support, and take it from there. But yeah, I'm so excited. I'm ready to get going, ready for the USL season to get started. I'm going to be following it, commentating on it, making some videos on it as the year goes on. So make sure you guys are subscribed. I'll be getting to some games 100% as long as I'm physically able to. I'll be getting to some games and making some videos about them. And yeah, so make sure you guys are subscribed so you can see that and start learning about the USL.